Hi, Gene here with today's thought, and today we'll be talking about an event that happened the day before I'm recording this, 2 days before you're seeing it. You may already have heard about it. It was something that I did not expect to get much airplay or discussion on the mainstream media, which I really don't watch that much. So I could be wrong. Maybe you already know about this, but it's still worth talking about. I'm talking about Robert F. Kennedy, that he has, well, let's go right to a video first, and then I'll give you my thoughts. This is Nicole Shanahan. She is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate for vice president for his independent campaign. So let's just hear from her first, and then I'll have my comments.
There's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and you know, we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision.
If you didn't know, now you know. That was Nicole Shanahan, Robert F. Kennedy's vice presidential running mate, saying that, now this is from her, it's not from Robert F. Kennedy himself, but I would assume that she reflects his thinking, and so I have to assume that there is serious consideration of RFK dropping out of the race and endorsing Donald Trump. Now, we have to speculate, as I'm recording this the day before you're seeing it. Robert F. Kennedy has not said anything one way or the other, but you can see the thinking, that what the logic, what they're thinking. You got that from Shanahan just now, that they entered the race not to be they don't want to be a spoiler. He was in it to win it, Robert F. Kennedy, and it's pretty obvious that he's not going to win, that he's not going to become president, for one reason, because he's not on a lot of ballots. And I understand that his fundraising is drying up, which is perfectly understandable because it's obvious that he's not going to win. Now, the decision what to do, if I were he, I would endorse Trump. Well, let's go back a little bit. Why did Robert F. Kennedy decide to run as an independent? Remember, he ran originally as a Democrat, but the Democratic Party they all colluded to keep Joe Biden on the ballot to prevent any challenge to him until that fateful debate on June 27th, where the whole thing fell through and the whole world got to see how the deterioration of Joe Biden. But until then, and had that debate not happened, I would think they would still be shielding him to this very day. It would not surprise me. But there was no Robert F. Kennedy. All he wanted was a primary debate, for there to be a primary debate, and he would have been one of the candidates, and he would have said what he had to say, and if he lost, which probably would have happened, then that would have been the end of it. But the Democrats would not even hold a primary, and that's what really set him off, and he decided to launch his own campaign. Now, since he launched that campaign, so we already said they prevented him from even speaking in a primary, number one, and then as an independent, this is the contrast, and this, I don't have a video of that, she's talking separately, Shanahan, that what the Democrats did when he decided to run his independent campaign, what they were doing to keep him off the ballots in every state, if they would have managed it. He did get on in a few states, but she mentioned the obvious, that the Republican Party the Republicans did nothing to keep him off the ballot, even though, and this is interesting, there were polls showing that RFK was taking more votes from Trump than from Biden. And if that's the case, then that speaks, it speaks volumes that even though there would be possibly more votes taken from Trump than from Biden, that the Republicans did nothing to keep him off of ballots or prevent him from being heard, prevent him from running. But the Democrats, they pulled out all the stops. So RFK, he owes the Democratic Party nothing, and I could see why he would be angry with them. And as you just heard Shanahan say, that it's obvious they would just be a spoiler. The only reason that she could stay, that she has for staying in the race, is to win 5% of the vote, and then if that happens, and they become a quote unquote, I don't know the exact rules, but they become a quote unquote, I guess, legitimate political party, then they can get in the next election. They can get. The party can get federal financing for the election. So funds, just as the major parties get. So there is that consideration. But if they fall short of the 5%, all they'll be doing is acting as a spoiler. And as she said, they do not want. I guess this is definitely a reflection of their thinking. She at least does not want Kamala Harris to become president. So whatever you can say about RFK, he is very liberal, no doubt about that, which we'll get to in a moment. But he's not a socialist. He is not a socialist. He's a liberal Democrat, and I could understand why he would not. Kamala Harris is a socialist, and Tim Walz. He's definitely a socialist, and I mean, even he is even quoted as saying, "Well, socialism is just what one man's socialism is another man's just neighborliness, just being a good neighbor." So, you can take that for what it's worth, and that's Kamala Harris presidency. So if they want to prevent that, or do what they can to prevent that, then it's obvious that RFK should drop out and endorse Trump. Because remember this, and I don't know why Trump hasn't said this, or somebody hasn't said it, it's pretty obvious. You can try to you could come back and try to form a third party in 2028, and this should be obvious. If RFK has endorsed Donald Trump, then in 2028, because win or lose, Trump he'll be too old, I would think, to run for. I could not, if he loses, I mean, if he wins, he can't run again. If he loses, very possibly he won't run again, and that would be my prediction. But you would have a lot of goodwill from Trump supporters for RFK having endorsed him, and RFK would still be young enough, I guess, to run. But if not, I mean, if you're forming an actual party, it's not supposed to be for one person. It's supposed to be for the ideas. So that would be a consideration. And could he? The question is, could? Well, the problem is this idea has been floated of Trump offering RFK a position, a cabinet position or something, or some kind of official advisory position. Maybe that's what I would go for, an advisory position, just as he's talking about with Elon Musk in Musk's case, to form some kind of committee to look at ways to reduce spending. So you could have another advisory committee with RFK, or put him on the same committee with Musk. So that would be a possibility. Cabinet position. Well, the problem is if you go that far, then it looks like it's, well, all the appearances of a quid pro quo, that RFK doesn't support Trump, but he just wants a cabinet position to advance his own ideas. So you have that possibility, and that could hurt could hurt his credibility and the influence that he would have. Now, how much influence we have, you have to remember that the Florida, the 2000 election, Florida that state decided the election, but it's not the state; it's the amount of votes. The entire presidential election. I'm obviously, some of you maybe you weren't even born then watching this, but that election was decided by about 500 votes. 500 votes, one way or the other, would have swung Gore would have won. So you could see how it could make RFK's endorsement and support could make just enough difference in a lot of states. And you have to, even in the 2020 election, that election was decided by just 40,000 votes in certain very strategic districts, and had just a few votes gone a different way, not just in one place, not just 500 votes, but a few dozen here, 100 there, in some certain districts, would have swung Trump would have won. He would have won in the Electoral College. So RFK, he could make a big difference. Now, the question is, though, you look at their positions, and I don't see a lot in common between Trump and RFK. So I don't see, on the basis for support for RFK, the logic for supporting supporting Trump, as I look at it right now, would just be, lesser of two evils. That the economy did well under, Chris Cuomo, CNN, former CNN, I mean, not CNN talking head, brother of Andrew Cuomo, who, by the way, I would say, this is a little aside, he would not be a bad, even though I'm a conservative, I usually vote Republican, I'm an independent, but Andrew Cuomo, who's an attorney general, he's a Democrat, former governor of New York, he would be a good, I could support him for attorney general. That would be, show a lot, that would say a lot about Trump. It would say a lot about restoring integrity to the government, for Trump to nominate, and I'm sure he would be confirmed, because he would get all the support from the Democrats and just need a couple, a handful of Republicans, but to nominate Andrew Cuomo for Attorney General. That would really be, I would think that would be fantastic. And so anyways, I'm digressing, so just get it back on track here. For the idea is that RFK would say, however, the reason I mentioned Chris Cuomo was because he said, now he's a liberal Democrat, and all these people talking about Trump being a threat to democracy, and he said the country would be okay he would be okay. He doesn't support Trump, but he would be okay with a Trump presidency, that it would not be this disaster that people are predicting. So RFK could take the same tact and say, I don't agree with Trump on a lot of things, but when he was president, the economy was good, inflation was low, gas was cheap, we were energy independent, there were no wars, and if it's a choice between that and what we've had, if we have to choose between the 4 years we had of Trump and the 4 years that we just had of the Biden administration, which would Harris administration would just be a continuation of that, except more to the left, and actually a fourth Barack Obama term, if you want to really get down to nuts and bolts. So I could see him endorsing Trump on that basis and say, Trump, we cannot have a Kamala Harris presidency, and I'm supporting Trump, and then we'll see what happens in 2028. That's what I would do if I were RFK. There may be some points where actually there is one, because Trump, Kennedy wants to keep us out of foreign wars, and I guess Ukraine and stuff like that. And I think he's in agreement with Trump on that. So that could be one reason, one point of common ground. There may be other common ground. Anyways, that's my thought for today. Thanks for stopping by. If you could subscribe, that would really be great. Share this video with anyone you think could benefit from it. Comments always welcome in the comment section below the video. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see you all again, bye.